bring us up to speed because there's so much more.
I think she said it all, but I think what happens is because I am a DJ, and I really am a DJ, I have more than one bio out there. And so I think that hers emphasized the DJing, which is real true. However, I think I've changed it since Black Girls Rock has been in existence now for, what, 12 years? So I kind of moved the Black Girls Rock stuff to the forefront and put the DJing in the back, but I still am a DJ.
DJ at heart, absolutely.
No, DJ on the turntables too.
All right, okay. And let me just ask you this. We were working, but we heard DJ Coco Chanel holding it down, right?
Yes.
How'd she do it? Yes.
So what you may not know is that DJ Coco Chanel, not only she's one of the illest girls in the game, she has been a recipient of Black Girls Rock Award. Before we televised the award show in 2008, she won. I used to have a DJ award. In fact, our first honoree was a DJ Jazzy Joyce, and I yes, because she's from up here, right? Yeah, and I felt like it was important. It was one, I feel so empowered from that career. Because you know, when I became a DJ, it's kind of when my confidence grew leaps and bounds, because it took a level of skill, it took a level of practice, it took knowledge, and when you enter a field like that, you have to be, in order to be respected, you have to do the work. And I did the work, and I was really good at it, and so I think that that's where my confidence really grew. Not so much, you know, from being a model, but from being a DJ, I really felt that it empowered me in a way. And so I wanted to make sure that I honored women who inspired me. And Joyce, Coco, Spinderella, and then another young lady out of Philadelphia, DJ Diamond Cuts, have all won the DJ award before Black Girls Rock was televised. And once we got televised, we had to shrink the show down a little bit, so we couldn't have all of the awards.
But why DJ? Because that traditionally, right, there really weren't a lot of women. So what made you say, you know what, I'm going to be a DJ and I'm going to be the baddest DJ?
Oh no, I never wanted to be a DJ. I was just a hobbyist. I loved music, I loved collecting records. I was a dancer. I was the person the DJ played for in the club. And I have friends that were DJs. I read liner notes on the albums. I was in conversations with musicians all the time. So I really was preparing myself for this thing unknowingly. And so when I became a DJ, it really was only because I was about to move to California. I had just gotten out of a 2.5-year acting program in New York. And I was modeling, so I was going to move to LA to start my acting career. And this was in November or December '99. And a friend of mine, Wood Harris, I don't know if you guys know him, he's an actor. Okay, so Wood was, he said, Bev, you know, when you come to LA, it's not like New York. You don't have social connections like that. You can't just go to the cafe and start conversations because we're so separated. And he said what he did is that him, Saul Williams, and Fatima Robinson, the dancer, they had poetry readings at their house. And so my goal, I was like, oh, well, when I go, I'll bring my records, because I was already a collector. And I said, I'll bring my records, and what I'll do is I'll DJ the poetry reading. So that was my big plan. And then I got turntables, and then I started practicing. But my goal the entire time was just to DJ the after party as a hobby at their poetry reading. And then the career, so when I started practicing, and then I realized that, you know, I had a thing with it, but I still didn't want to be a DJ. I just wanted to be good. I wanted to be great. And so I started asking DJs that I knew if I could open for them. And most people were like, no, get out of here. Like, no modeling DJ. This was before the technology changed. So this is before you couldn't fake it. You had to have your records. You had to know how to play. And so most of them said no. 2 people said yes. The 2 people that said yes, the day I started was the day that I got popular. Like literally the very first day. And you know, and then from there it became, by my 3rd month, I was a name. But I had done all that preparation way before I started DJing. And so that's why it looked something like a phenomenon, but it really wasn't. It was really me being so prepared before I even stepped into this field.
Take note, preparation, okay? Preparation. Thank you so very much. And that's the key. And let's just fast forward to Black Girls Rock, because when you see Beverly, you know, we see she is amazing. You are gorgeous.
Thank you.
So accomplished. We know that. But let's go back, and I want to hear your story, because people don't realize there is a backstory to Black Girls Rock. So it didn't just happen that you were on BET and Fabulous and the Fabulosity. Let's help our audience understand what it took to get here.
Well, I started Black Girls Rock in 2006, and most people that don't know that, they recognize it from BET, and that started in 2010. But we always had an award show. We were at Lincoln Center for several years, and we were at Time Center, so it was a big deal. We already had a lot of celebrity attached to the show. Like I said, we've honored Coco before, we honored Jazzy Joyce. Our first honorees were MC Light and Jazzy Joyce, and that first award show took place in Brooklyn. By year 2, we had so much support around the idea of what this was that women just joined. So Regina King was one of the first people who joined and said, you know, I'll host this show. So Regina King was our host way before we got to TV. Gabrielle Union was our co-host. Kerry Washington called and said, I have to be involved in this thing. So there were a number of women who were pushing this, you know, helping me to elevate this idea and this platform, because we all knew that this message and this affirmation was needed for us. And so everybody was just, you know, just so on board for it. And, you know, by 2007, I already had the TV offers. I had VH1, actually was the first, they were our media partner, so we all thought we were going to VH1. And it didn't end up going until BET until the last minute, but I always knew I wanted to be there because I knew that that's where I felt the message would be more well received, you know. And so, yeah, so, you know, it took a lot of work. It took a lot of belief in myself and the mission. And I think that, you know, for me, I had tunnel vision with this thing. Like, I was not stopping, and I didn't care if we went to TV or not. You know, for the first 4 years, I had to, you know, work really hard to make that award show happen every year. But every year I would reach out, and every year people would come through. And in fact, our last award show, we were in negotiations with BET, and I remember them asking me if we could not do the show because we had so much talent. And that year we honored, and this is pre-TV, so it's not what you saw on TV, but we honored Latifah, Mary, Janelle Monáe. We used to have a Soul Brother #1 award. That year it was Anthony Hamilton. We honored Raven Simone when she was black. You know, there were a number of people that were honored, you know, and it was incredible. Like, it was already an incredible movement that was happening, you know, which is how, you know, Ebony and Essence were recognizing the work that I was doing very early on. But of course, when you go to TV, then it takes it to a whole nother level. And that was an incredible moment too, for it to come to TV, because now I realized that I was not just preaching to the choir. Because before, Black Girls Rock was received and known by people who wanted to hear that message. But when we went to TV, it spread the message beyond the audience that we knew already supported this kind of thing. And now when you look at what's happening in the world, and you look at all this black girl magic that's everywhere, how people are embracing, you know, and even looking for their black girl character. You know, it was no accident that they chose to use, what's the young lady's name from yesterday? Naomi. Yeah, it's no accident that they chose to use her. If we hadn't done what we did, somebody else wouldn't have done what they did, and it wouldn't have continued on. But right now, they looked for that little young black girl to be the voice of the Youth March. And so that's when you know that what you've done is helping, it's a part of a tipping point. And I think all of us doing the work, you know, we're all collectively doing it. I think just Black Girls Rock just had something. I think my approach and my experience, the combination, and my careers had a lot to do with how I was able to penetrate a message that really was very difficult to penetrate. There was a time when all you saw, and I know we still have this time, but all you saw were messages that were stereotyping us, objectifying us, degrading and dehumanizing us, or dismissing us and acting as if we did not matter, and that our presence held no real significance. And so that's what I was fighting against, and that's what I still, that's what I'm still fighting against. And I don't take this time for granted. I don't take it for granted that we're seeing, black women's images come to the forefront. I love that it's happening, but I'm not going to sleep. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to sleep because it doesn't mean it's not going to change.
Absolutely. Stay woke. Bev is woke, okay? Seriously. She's doing the work. She is doing the work. Thank you. But people associate Bev with Brooklyn, right? Everybody thinks Bev is a Brooklyn girl. But when you really do the research, you learn that you grew up in Maryland, right?
Well, I grew up in a lot of places, and I talk about it, and you guys will read in the book, and I think that that's also adds to my unique experience of how I started this. But I think that, we moved a lot. My mother moved a lot when I grew up. And we were not in the military, and we were not in a band. We just moved. And those are usually the questions that you get, like, why are you, a half semester here, half semester. But I think what I got was a lot of experience through a black girl's lens in different spaces. And I talk about that. I talk about how I experienced this in black schools, and white schools, and private schools, and public schools, and in poor communities, into a little bit more affluent communities, or middle class communities, and just watching what the messages always were to us as a people, as black people, and then kind of what the messages were to black girls. And I think that that uniqueness of my lens also helped me to craft this.
Again, the preparation. March for Our Lives, yesterday. I think some of us went, all right? That's right, Sean. Early in the morning, absolutely. And we see some of our people here today, I guess, were on different buses yesterday, right, Sean? And showed up here today. When you look at the march and you see all those faces, particularly those young people, what does that say to you?
I think that this time period of us seeing people stand up and push back and say this is not right, I thought it was amazing that young people took this into their own hands. I do, however, want to say that as black people in the black community, we can't be dismissed from the conversation when it comes to gun violence, right? And we also can't dismiss the work that we've been doing. Right? We might not be as funded because some Hollywood star doesn't come and drop $1 million on our movements. Right? But there are plenty of us that have been in this community doing this work for a long time and speaking out against gun violence. So, you look at it two ways. You look at it like, yes, applaud all the young people, and I applaud all of you that are a part of this. And I applaud all of the young kids all across, regardless of where they're from. But I do want to say that, gun violence has impacted our community in horrible ways for a very long time. And it's sad to think that when these mass shootings happen, which they should, there's now a conversation that people are listening to about the harms of gun violence in communities, And so it's just, it's the thing that we always have to watch out for as black people, right? We always know this. The same thing with the Me Too and Time's Up, right?
That's right.
The statistics are horrible about what happens in the black community to black girls, to black women. Battery, assault, rape. Those numbers are crazy. And so when we don't see the outcry, it doesn't happen for us. We just have to constantly be reminded of that, but we also have to know that that exists and continue to build platforms for ourselves. Because I think that, and then we have to also hold, thank you, but I also think that we also have to hold those in our community who are actually lending their voices and their names to, that have big names and big platforms, and they'll lend their voice and their money and their name so quickly and so easily, and they should, right? They should be a part of that. but they should also go and find those community organizations that are also doing that work, that have proven track records of doing that work. You know what I mean? That have the numbers, and you're not going to go and just look for every community, because you'd probably run out of money trying to do that. But there are people who've been doing the work for a long time, that are led by Black women, and or Black people, and it's just, it's what's the word? It's just another truth that our lives don't seem to matter as much. And that's the problem that I have with it, although I have no problem with any protest. I have no problem with anybody trying to make a change. And I think, in defense of all of those children who decided to be a part of this, kudos, hats off to all of those kids. You know what I mean? Hats off to all those kids. And it also took something like this to keep happening, for them to kind of see it through our eyes. And I think that there was an attempt from at least a lot of the youth themselves to make sure that they were inclusive of the other conversation about gun violence, whether it be police brutality or whether it be gun violence in our communities that no one seems to want to try to help us solve.
Beverly Bond, come on. Now you know. Right. And you're going to get a lot of information when you get a chance to read the book, because there are some amazing, dynamic trailblazers in this book. Let's talk about some of the women that you had the chance to sit down and interview. I'm putting you on the spot right now because there's so many amazing women. Anybody come to mind right now that makes you say, note to self? Note to self, when you sat down with this amazing woman?
Yeah, so many of the women in this book, but I think the note to self moments happened with everyone. Yeah, with everyone. But I think when Maxine Waters was talking about the importance of service and how the women who she saw in her community who were her heroes weren't people that we knew. There were people there were women who were fighting for the rights of welfare recipients, right? And they were fighting because there was a time when people who were receiving public assistance, there was no dignity in it. They would come to your house, apparently, count your children, check in your refrigerators and in your closets to see what you had, made sure you didn't have a boyfriend. It was all kinds of craziness that, that she described, and she was saying that, that practice, there were women who stood up for those women and actually stopped that practice. And she says, you'll never know those women's names, but those women showed her how to be of service. So when you hear stories like that, you're like, yes, you're inspired by it, but you're on the right path, Or, Dr. Natoki Ford, who's incredible. She's a scientist. She used to be the White House policy advisor under Barack Obama. And she talked about how she had suffered through, and a lot of us, especially women of color, suffer through imposter syndrome when we start to get success. And she talked about, and I remember I was doing the audiobook. We have an audiobook too, y'all. And some of the women actually did their own voices. So I think Dr. Ford read hers, but before they were reading theirs, I was reading them before we knew who we had. And when I was reading her narrative, it stopped me for a second, and I had to break down, because I'm like, oh my God, I felt what she was talking about. And she spoke about how she was, she was in Harvard. She got there. She was always an A student. She always did well. She got to Harvard. Suddenly, she's the only Black girl, one of few, and she felt uncomfortable. She felt not worthy. So much so that she quit and decided to go to LA. She's like, well, I wanted to act anyway, so she goes to LA, tries to act, there's no money in that, so she goes back to teaching in the hood. And she goes and teaches, and so as she's teaching, she's talking to her students. One of her students just reminds her, he says, Dr. Ford, what are you still doing here? This is what her student said to her. And she said, what do you mean? He was like, I know you're going to go back to Harvard and finish that degree, right? Because if you don't finish it, we don't see that we can do it. And it was just so powerful that she did that. And that's what sent her back, back to school. So I think that there are so many incredible, and then April Holmes is one of the ones that just really gets me. April Holmes is the fastest Paralympian in the 400-meter race, I believe. April talks about her accident, and she uses it as a metaphor for how, we're all, she starts her narrative, 5 words changed my life. Did you get her leg? And she talks about hearing that as she ran for an Amtrak train. She was the last person on the train, jumps on the train as the train starts to move. She gets pinned under the train. And as she gets pinned under the train, things are going through her mind, they sedate her, she's stuck under this train. And she uses that as a metaphor for how we're stuck under trains. And somehow in her groggy state, being all sedated, they kept trying to lift the train off of her. And every time they lifted it, it was cold, it was rainy, or snowing, and so it kept slipping. So they would lift it, they would jack it up, and it would slip back down. So she somehow got enough just energy to say to the people, just as easy as y'all back this train up or roll this train over me, why don't y'all start the engines and back it up off me, right? And then she uses that whole thing as how we are stuck under mental trains and how we need to get those trains, we have to find that energy to tell somebody to back this train up off me so I can get to where I gotta go, And so it's just so inspiring. Like, when I was putting this together, I knew it was going to just be impactful. And I was like, wow, because it is a inspirational, a powerful inspirational book, full of these women's triumphs, of their survival, of their grit, of their discipline, of their work ethic, of their spirituality, of their love, and it just happens to be told through the lens of Black women. But it's really just anybody that's reading this book is going to be inspired, anybody from any walk of life.
And for me, just thumbing through it, first of all, the book is absolutely breathtaking. It is beautiful. It is a beautiful work of art. How long did it take you from the beginning to the end? Yeah, the journey.
The journey, oh my God, 2 years. And it was 2 tough years. Mind you, it was 2 years of still having to produce an award show in the process, and also produce our youth mentoring programs in the process, and all the other things that I'm working on with Black Girls Rock and my other projects. So it was nonstop. It was a labor of love. It was nonstop. It was a lot of work and dedication and passion. But every time, I would go back and I'd call my mom and I'd read something to her, and she'd be like, wow. Wow, and I think that I knew in the process it didn't bother me. It didn't bother me the amount of time and the amount of work that it took, because it was a beautiful process the whole way through, but it was definitely a lot of work. Yeah.
Looking at Black Girls Rock, we know we're looking for BET in August, right? We're looking for the show again. What's next for Beverly Bond?
I'm working on a number of things, but in terms of Black Girls Rock, we are taking it global. We are doing Black Girls Rock Africa, which is our next, and we've been working on that for, a couple years now. We've been working on just getting it together, and so hopefully this year we will actually unveil Black Girls Rock Africa.
Just sitting here, I'm getting goosebumps. I'm getting chills just listening to you. What do you think out there? And I ask you because I always talk about we really don't appreciate, we just don't know the backstory of what it really takes to get here, to get here, and to hear a lot of no's. And you can't, and you won't, but you did and you do. So that's what I wanted to just talk about. for our young girls sitting in this audience, and we not only are young girls, for more of us mature, right? Let's keep it real. Can you, I always talk about passing the pearls. Passing the pearls, sharing your pearls. What can you tell us that we can walk away and just say, I can do it. I can do it. I can move that mountain, even when they tell me no, particularly.
Yeah, I mean, I think that first we have to identify who we are defining as they. Like, who is the they? Who's stopping you from moving and shifting your gears to go to your next best self? You know, and that process is an ongoing process, right? We're continuously working on ourselves, getting better, moving forward. You don't just arrive, you got to keep going. You got to keep doing the work. And I think that's probably one of the more important things, because I think sometimes when people think somebody has the control over their life, you've already stopped yourself when you think that somebody else controls your destiny. You know what I mean? Your destiny should be between you, your truth, your authenticity, and your creator. You know? And so I don't think that a lot of us sometimes understand that, and I think you need some alone time. And I would especially say to young girls, because you know, we're grown and we grew up at a time when we didn't have social media and we didn't have to compare ourselves to a lot of other people all the time. A lot of young people are getting caught in somebody else's story, you know, and it's unfortunate, you know, but it is also the world we live in right now, right? And it's, so there's great things about the technology, the way you can become an entrepreneur fast, the way that you can get to where you go. But I think if you skip the steps, and I think what happens is a lot of young people are skipping steps or trying to skip steps, and they don't know that they're skipping them. They just somehow, you know, I think everybody that kind of comes up as a teen and into their early adulthood, you know, thinks they are the bomb, right? There's some point where you're just like, youth has a way of making you believe that time is on your side. And sometimes younger people don't know how to value that time, you know, and right now the showing off on the social media is a big thing for a lot of kids, and unfortunately a lot of our kids. But you can use that same technology and become innovators instead of just always being consumers. So I think if you find yourself being too caught up in watching people's pages or looking for how many likes you get, if you're spending so much time doing that stuff, then you might be skipping something else in your life that might be really important for you to elevate yourself to your next level. And I also think that, like, I think finding your authentic self is also a process. Like, I didn't know I wanted to be a DJ. I love music. You understand what I'm saying? The process was my passion for music, which I talk about in the book too. This goes back to my mama cleaning house on Saturday, pulling out the records, making me listen, and kind of giving me a little lesson every time we cleaned the house, every Saturday. So this was part of my, she set the bar. You know what I mean? And I've been a DJ since then. But I didn't say I'm a DJ now, you know what I'm saying? It took me the time, it took me to do the work to do that. But certainly knowing that music was my passion. Matter of fact, just a quick story. When I was in that school, I was in, it's called William Esper acting school, right? Is it William Esper? Yeah, it's William Esper. I'm not sure if it's still downtown, but I actually just saw that my acting coach twice got shout outs on the Oscars. So I was like, wow, that's a really good school. But the whole point of the school, so if there's anybody who's really serious about acting, I really recommend it. If you're not going to like an NYU program or something like that, because this program is incredible. But what it does is it makes you take off the layers and get to the truth of who you are. And honestly, as soon as I finished that program, I became a DJ. because my truth was music. And I'm telling you, everyone thought I was going to LA. They were like, Bev, my teacher said, you know, in all the time that he had ever taught the class, he never had a student that he had no notes for. And he's like, Beverly, I have no notes for you. And then he said to the class, ladies and gentlemen, this is acting, right? So everybody's like, Bev's going to Hollywood, right? And I thought I was, I really did. I thought I was, but this music thing started calling me. Remember, the music was my preparation to go to Hollywood to just play background music at this house party. Not even house party, poetry reading at their house, you know? And I realized that my passion was that music, and it always had been. Do you know what I mean? And it took me so much that it took me to this. And if you think about it, Black Girls Rock was really built off of my career, because I was paying a lot more attention to the music, to the messages, also from modeling, noticing the lack of us. So all of those things had something to do with how I was able to see how to penetrate this very narrow message, very narrow narrative for Black women, because there were people trying to do it. There were people pushing back against music messages, videos, the lack of, the stereotyping of us. But I felt like with what I knew, what the industry that I was in, it prepared me to see in ways that other people didn't see. Do you know what I mean? And one of the things that I saw was that Black Girls Rock is not fighting you. I'm not fighting you. It's like the song, you can get with this or you can get with that, right? I was just like, you know, we don't have to accept this, ladies. Like, we can define ourselves. We don't need people to validate us. We can validate ourselves. And that's what Black Girls Rock was. And that's what I, you know, if I wasn't the DJ, before that, I don't think that maybe, well, you know, I don't know, but I think that being the DJ, in the industry, I remember specifically seeing the incredible sexism, right? And the incredible, terrible things that were happening to women by men who were making decisions about what music goes into our community, right? And so paying a lot more attention to that, I was already upset. You know, but at the same time, you know, as a DJ, I was like, everybody, I'm cool with everybody, right? You know, my DJ crew is cool. All the rappers knew me, loved me because I had so much respect for the way that I played. And because I had earned so much respect, nobody saw it coming from me, because I was quiet too. I was super introverted, not like now where I'm speaking. I was like super introverted. I was never the DJ that got on a microphone. I was just playing music. But I don't think anybody saw it coming. Yeah, no one saw it coming. They didn't expect it from me, because it was like, Bev is cool. Why would she be complaining about images of women, you know, in entertainment? You know, we love Bev. That's kind of how it was. And it was like, no, like, I can speak up. And so I think that was another thing too. I wasn't going to be the girl that was like, oh, they're not talking to me. It's not bothering me. You know, my friend Todd calls it the us for and no more syndrome. Like, when you think when you're in and you're good, you don't think it's a problem for other people, you know.
And on that note, what I appreciate is you show the world that Black women work together well.
Yes. Absolutely.
We work together well.
Absolutely.
And, you know, I don't take that lightly. I look at Cheryl, I look at Sister to Sister International, bringing all these beautiful Black and brown women together, moving Westchester, changing the tide. I mean, almost 20 years, Cheryl, where are you? Almost 20 years of showing and doing exactly what you're talking about. Black women working well together, and for that we thank you for Black Girls Rock. Thank you. So, I'm getting the cue from Ms. Lorianne over here that our time is coming to an end, but we really need to open up the floor and allow and hear from some of our audience members. I know there may be some questions out there, some questions that you may want to ask Miss Beverly Bond, because trust me, we've got a lesson right here, and the legacy continues. Miss Vera, I see you over there. I see you. And uh-oh, here comes Blake's got the mic. Thank you, Blake. Thank you, thank you. 3 questions, Michelle? Sorry, I'm sorry. Okay, sorry.
Okay, so, hi.
Hello.
This is kind of a loaded question. So, in light of March of Our Lives and Black Lives Matter, it seems as if the world is starting to care less and less about our children. More importantly, our young Black and brown kids. What do you have to say to the children to remind them that they are our future?
I mean, I think we did touch on this before, but I think that we have to constantly, we all have a responsibility to empower and remind our kids, but I think that we have to also make sure that our kids are paying attention. This is a time period that's, this is the stuff my mom went through. Like where the blatant racism, where the Ku Klux Klan was marching. This is not the stuff that I grew up on. This is the stuff that my mom went through, so it came back, right? And that means that it never really went away. But somehow we were kind of like complacent with the idea that we were, I'm not gonna say that we ever thought we were post-racial, but we weren't as active, proactive about it as we are right now again, right? So I think that when this time changes, when everyone's not protesting, when everyone's not, if that time comes, we have to always remind our next generation of the work that we had to do. And we also have to remind them to pay attention. It's almost like when I said before about like right now we're seeing all this black girl magic everywhere, but we can't forget. Like before Black Girls Rock, back in the 70s, they had a Black is Beautiful movement. You know what I mean? And so it should have never gotten to a space where black girls felt like they didn't matter, but it did, right? So now we're looking at what's happening right now with our youth, and again, I think that it's important to keep our voices in the conversation. And I think we gotta be just as proactive about making sure that we're reminding people, because sometimes people just don't know to put us in the conversation. So we got to be as proactive of reminding people as we do about complaining about not being there. I think one of the things that I saw with Women's March, for example, you know, Tamika Mallory took control of that. And, you know, and
how about that?
And turn that thing into making sure that our voices were in the forefront, making sure that they were diverse in reaching out to all communities, right? But a lot of people and a lot of us were still like anti, and I'm like, Tamika's one of the most consistent, dopest, committed, you know, fiercest activist that I know, and she's been doing it way before cameras were on her. She was doing it way before cameras were on her. She was doing it young. She came from a family of it. So I think that we got to be so proactive at all times, and that's how we remind our kids and make sure that they understand that they can't not be proactive about something that moves humanity. Do you know what I mean? Doesn't have to be their cause. Their cause could be environmental issues. You know what I mean? But they do, every person, every human being, as Shirley Chisholm says, you know, service is the rent we pay for being on this earth. And so that's got to be passed down to all of our kids. You're welcome.
Hi, my name is Sienna. Miss Beverly, what inspired you to make the book?
Hi, you're so cute. Thank you for asking me. It was the next natural step. And I wanted to do something, you know, when you have an award show, like I said, we used to have a longer award show when we were not on TV, so we had a lot more awards. When you're on TV, you got to keep it within that little bit of time, and so you can't go over it. And I felt like there was a lot missing, a lot of our voices. not missing from the show, because that's all people are going to watch is a 2-hour show. They're not going to really go over that. But I felt that there was so much more magic that needed to be shared. And I knew so many incredible women, and I wanted to have longer versions of their stories. And I wanted them to give us, our audience, something, you know, to be inspired, to take with them. And so that was why I decided to do a book. Thank you.
Hi, Beverly. My name is Sydney. I'm 17 years old and I go to New Rochelle High School. I was told that was the last question, but I recently just started embracing my black skin. I am a Westchester black girl who rocks. This was a while back, and I'm so glad that I'm here tonight because I've always looked up to you, especially when my mother introduced me to Black Girls Rock Awards. And I remember I was looking to join on the website just in class, I think it was about 10th grade, and this girl just walked up to me and she said, you know, I hate Black Girls Rock and it's racist. And, you know, she just so happened to be white and I had nothing to say. I mean, yeah, I had nothing to say and I didn't know how to combat that because I didn't want to seem like the angry black girl. So what do you have to say to girls like me who are proud of who they are?
I say be proud of who you are. And I say, you know, for her to say that to you, why did she hate it? So what gave her that visceral reaction to tell a black girl that what you are looking at, that says that you are, that empowers you, that says that you rock? It doesn't say she doesn't rock, right? It says that you rock. What's wrong with you and your racist self, right? Like what's wrong with you? Like, why are you, what you have to do is you have to ask her, what about it feels racist to you? And then to me, I would follow up with define racism. Because how is this disempowering you? Because I can tell you how your white racism has disempowered us.
Yeah.
I can show you, you know, a whole history of what that looks like. I can show you a whole history of terror of what that looks like. Show me how this disempowers you. And have you watched this show? So what particular speech offended you? Was it Marion Wright Edelman or Mrs. Obama? You know what I'm saying? Which one offended you? Was it Queen Latifah? Was it Denai Guerrero? Like who? Rihanna? Like what is it? Like what offended you? What makes you think this is racist? Because there's something put in the world in order to help empower us. Because if you look at all of your media, all of your images, all of your messages, you do not include us. You dismiss us. Or when we are there, we are somehow stereotyped, or we are objectified, or we're dehumanized. So until you know your history, Becky, you need to stop coming at me. I'm sorry, I get passionate. But I do not want you to go. I do not want you to go to school and call her Becky. I don't want you to do that. But I get offended when I see that. And honestly, I think we've gotten to a space now in the world where, you know, it's okay. Do you know what I mean? It's okay for you to push back. And again, this was a couple of years ago when this happened to you, right? But have you noticed that some of those kids have actually changed the way in which they're viewing stuff like this? They're changing the way in which they're viewing Black Lives Matter. Because they're starting to see it. And right now, all them kids out there marching, all those white kids from all those schools are now changing the narrative. Yeah, that too. But they're also trying to, it's like, it's a glimpse. It's a glimpse into, yeah, but not really, because it's a different kind of way that it happens to them. But yeah, when people are offended, you know, I don't ever encounter it. Let me tell you why. You're in school, so it's different. But I surround myself with all kinds of people. And I've never had anybody in my life that has been offended by Black Girls Rock, no matter where they're from. Everybody that I have in my life embraces it, and they understand the need and the necessity for it. Anybody that says that to you, they have a real problem. But what was really interesting is that whole pushback came when we went to TV. When we went to TV, there was this whole, you know, why Black girls rock, why not white girls rock, right? And I had to write a little something and slap it up a little bit. Yeah, right. They're not just rocking for a while. We know you rock. We see it in everything that we see. We know it. We see it in magazines. We know you rock, don't you know? Do you know what I mean? Because see it everywhere. But why would you be so offended, in particular, why are you so offended that a award show on black entertainment television that helps to uplift and inspire black women to embrace everything that is them, that empowers them, why are you offended by that? And so what I noticed was not so much the racist people that are just racist that are never going to love us anyway, but the people who were actually tuned in to BET, the women who were tuned into our quote-unquote culture. But you got mad. Were you as vocal when those images on that network were not so stellar? Were you vocal about that? Did you say, I'm offended by the way that y'all are treating these women? You didn't say that, but now you're offended because there's a platform that elevates our stories, our narratives, our work, our contributions that wasn't there before. So I know that's a lot. At least you got something to work with.
I'm going to tell her all of it.
Except for don't call her Becky, unless that's her name.
But what I appreciate though was that sister's honesty. She was honest about where she was at. How about that? She was honest about it.
Who?
She was Becky? Yeah. But she was talking about what she had to deal with Becky.
Her.
Right?
Okay, yeah.
But she was honest about, my sister was honest about where she was at in her life. But
Well,
we're clear now though. I just want to make sure we're clear now. Where's she at? We're clear?
But you know, that was one of the unexpected things in our mentoring programs. It's actually one of the things that we weren't even as aware of as we are now, that the girls that are in isolation like you. There's so many girls that come to Black Girls Rock that have that very same story. And it's so great to see them come together and kind of find their tribe because they're in isolation. And they may have been a straight A student, they might be the valedictorian, but something in that school has made them feel that being in that skin and this body with this hair, not this hair, obviously the hair under this hair, but hello, but there's something about that being in isolation that continues to make our girls feel less than, having that imposter syndrome that Natoki talked about. And so I think that, I'm glad that you brought that up because you're not the only person, you know, dealing with situations like that.
Lessons, legacy, the bond, Miss Beverly Bond. And thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, sis. We thank you. And we just want you to keep on rocking. We got you. We need you. Thank you for giving us voice. Thank you, Miss Beverly Bond.
Thank you. Thank you guys. Thank you so much.
And we're going to continue. So I'm getting direction from Miss Cheryl, and I see Vera behind. So we might have some housekeeping notes, Miss Cheryl.
Yes, we'd like to formally wrap up. Let's give Dr. T and then we go on
Thank you very much. What a treat, what a treat. We would like to acknowledge some of our very special guests here tonight. First of all, you all are very special, but we again are very pleased to have another first in our midst. And that would be, for the first time, join me in saying ever, in the history of Westchester County, we have a black, someone of African descent that looks like us.